Hi everyone, and welcome to tonight's movie hangout, where we will discuss the movie Transcendence. We're actually going to take it to the next level of awareness. Send your questions on the Google Plus page. And just also before we start, I want to thank you for some of the comments we got a few weeks ago from people that are enjoying themselves. So thank you for being with us tonight as well. So about this movie, for those who haven't watched it, I don't want to actually spoil as you probably haven't watched it yet, but just to give you an overview, this movie tells about the story or the life of Will Pastor, a doctor working on artificial intelligence and doing some research on human emotions. Eventually, there is this group of anti-technology extremist group that attacks him, and then for him to stay alive, actually his wife studies to this into his quantum computer, omnipresent and starts changes in the world and building this technology advanced city. His wife starts doubting about and a fight of the fact is that being a virus and the consequence will be the end of the technology and the internet. Right, so this is a little bit of the movie, and with us to discuss tonight's hangout, we have Joseph from Budapest in Hungary. Hi, Joseph.
Hi.
And we have from Ottawa.
Hey, Joanna, you're breaking way up on my end here. Like, it's difficult to hear what you're saying.
Okay, let's see if it improves throughout this live hangout. Is it any better?
No, it's like every second we are skipped.
Okay, so I think I have to apologize as I have some issues on my end. So why don't you with your first point?
Telemann, I think Joanna was saying that we should just continue with the first point on the list that she had given us.
All right.
Do you have, or here, I'll just pull up the list right now.
Me too.
Oh, I see what she was asking. She was asking us what was the main point we did do and why. So how about you go first?
All right. So for me, it was a fascinating point of assistance of how they represented showing emotions and feelings, and how the protagonist, so to speak, was able to let go and transcend this influence of emotions and feelings, and having more clear vision and clarity of how he would approach this, so to speak, evolution and real expansion to process, and also how to basically what the difference is expansion and then transcendence, like going beyond the limits of ordinary experiences, and how to climb or achieve this, so to speak, from the current human system, and showing that what the humans are doing actually, and then how he did not wanted to fight, but he just explained that we are not going to fight them, we're going to transcend them. And it was like a similar approach how I try to live my life. And it was a cool reflection and also to question myself as a basically.
Cool. Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. Those points were prevalent as well for me. To add to what you said, I would say it was cool the way in which he was processing information, because it really showed the point that I mean, without it, he didn't have his body, but so he was just a mind essentially. But he was basically working with everything that is already here, and he was just connecting the dots that we hadn't really connected in terms of let's say the health research and whatnot, where they were able to assist humans' bodies in repairing and regenerating themselves. So I found that to be a cool point that was just basically specific to how we work with information, vocabulary here. And yeah, I thought that was very cool how they showed that within the movie.
Yes. Hi, Joanna.
Hey guys, I hope I'm back.
Yeah, you sound better.
Okay,
Let's
wonderful. Okay, so we got a comment from Mac. Thank you so much, Matt, for raising that. I really apologize for my internet connection. Hopefully it's going to get better in the next few days. So guys, have you covered the first point in terms of what is the main, well, the main point that you found supportive from this movie, yeah?
Yes, we started to discuss it, and as well, we explained, it was explained that quick change can bring up quite a lot of fear from people, and how it was reflected throughout the movie. That there was no communication from both sides, and what is happening, and how it's happening, and why it's happening. It just happened so fast that this inherent fear of change just took over everything, as I saw it in the movie.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of bizarre, I thought, almost how they had it. Like, I think it would have been cool if they showed, like a few more people being, pro what was happening, kind of exposing the common sense about it all. Like, hey guys, they're discovering totally awesome things here. Like, maybe we don't have to be so paranoid about what's happening here, because it was just kind of everybody was pro-military, and that I found it to be ironic that it was the terrorists and the military joined up together, because like the military is the biggest terrorist organization on the planet, in my opinion anyways. And so to have the so-called terrorist group working with the military in the end, I thought that was kind of just poking at the actuality of what's happening here.
Cool. Yeah, that's an interesting kind of perspective. And what I find is that these movies, they present us so much information that if we're not aware of it, and if we're not asking ourselves, what does this bring onto my knowledge and information, because that movies are actually a reflection of our acceptances and allowances. And as we
Right.
see how easy we are, like the news are deceptive ourselves and are so deceiving. I mean, And then we see how they are actually fabricated, whereby you use a terrorist attack to actually stop something without giving the proper information to the people. And I wanted now, as at the moment, I think you were covering also the point of like this resistance to change, Joseph. And it's interesting because people need to label things as good, bad, or good and evil. And this movie is another fight between the goods and the good and the bad, and then we have to label them accordingly to take a side. But in essence, there's a lot of things that are missing in this process of actually why, in terms of how often the whole system is the existing system is rejected, or any new things that we come up are rejected because of this resistance that we have to change. So what does this actually say about ourselves? How does that reflection as a mirror of who we are, why do we resist to change in the first place? Mike, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, okay. So basically, I see this as exposing it, and I've investigated this within myself, where I see that, you know, we humans inherently have this ingrained defense system within ourselves, like representing the military complex, if you will, and the terrorists. Whereas we're quick to react to new information, new things. So if we don't, and what happens is just something's presented to us, and if we don't know all about it already, it's like we don't even really look or think about it. It's just kind of snap into reaction, like whatever the point of conflict is. Like, because I see that as just based on like how our consciousness works, as constantly moving as an energy of friction. The mind looks for that friction and just reacts as that point of friction to whatever the situation. And so it's just a spiraling chain reaction kind of thing that, you know, is most unfortunate, because so often what happens is it goes back and forth so many times before anybody really stops to breathe and kind of assess the whole situation before there's, you know, most unfortunate ramifications that have manifested outward as consequence.
Yeah, absolutely. Joseph, would you like to add anything from your perspective, or sorry, I missed your first answer, so probably you had already explored that on the change.
Yes, I'd like to add that it's like within the now of consciousness, people are in the swing of the past and the future, and then they try to protect what has been established in the past. Not if it's the best or the utmost potential, but it's like it was like before, and it was like it contains good as well. So it's like a compromise, and then we fear of losing it, like falling into nothingness or whatever we fear, what we project into the future if we would change. But actually not seeing that what is the price and the consequence what we pay for this past to keep up. And actually, as the military requires lots of energy and many atrocities and abuse, and then we do not question, but we give into it because of the fear. And then within this movie, it was described, as Mike said, like immediate action, and then not questioning that what is happening or really considering.
Yeah. And it's I think it was also in this movie, or actually I think it was one movie that we discussed a few weeks ago, where it was we fear that which we don't understand, and that's so real in our process. How it's easier to just go into these defense mechanisms rather than to understanding, okay, what is this change? What is this bringing us to us? What is this showing about our own selves? And actually this ability that Will, this main character, has of going into the matrix of the system and having this ability to see everything, to control everything, it's almost like what a lot of people wish to do. People want to control their lives and control everything around them. Um, and we don't question that. However, we would be able to point the finger when we see another person doing it, or in this case, this quantum computer. So, very cool, guys. I want us to just be aware of the time as well. So let's go through another point, which I found was quite interesting to reflect upon, which is Will says that when he was in the system, he could see everything, and he knew exactly what he needed to do. He said, I want to go to the banking system, I want to do this change, so he could see much clearly what's happening in this world, which we as human beings seem not so easily able to do it. So guys, now bringing this back to our processes, and now that we're walking it through discovering our own points, our own minds, our own thought patterns, now how can we assist ourselves from the seeing how things work to actually acting and doing something about it in reality?
Okay, let me start. Well, it helps us tremendously in that we're able to, with self-examining ourselves the way we've been doing. What I found is that we really minimize the reactions within ourselves. Like, I'm sure it's a similar process for you guys, is where you know, when a reaction comes up within ourselves now, we're able to understand and investigate the dynamics of what came up, but at a basic level realize that it was a point of energy friction conflict, which could also be labeled as you know, a fear dynamic, and give that and release ourselves from the bondage of such a conditioning, which then expands our awareness and perspective of what is here and how we are operating here. And so I find it's a constant process of moving beyond the bounds and limitations of our self-induced fears, which are revealed to us from time to time as we participate as the reactions that come up within our mind, whether it be a major one or a minor one. And by seeing this, it really enhances our ability to communicate and relate and understand others who we are here with.
That's really cool. Joseph, I just wanted to ask you, when you're not speaking, if you can mute your microphone, just so we don't have echo from who else is speaking. And actually, on what you're saying, Mike, it's now that you talked about emotions, and this is going to be for Joseph, it's funny that when Evelyn is talking with Will, and Will can see her emotions, he could actually describe how she was feeling, and now your heart is beating faster, and I can see like the hormones in your body, and she was quite reactive about it, right? So, like, do you want to expand on this actual resistance that we have about understanding our own emotions and seeing how programmed they are, and how have you dealt with your own emotions, and how can this movie assist you to realize it even further?
Yes, I remember that point, and she was like shouting that these are my thoughts and these are my feelings. You're not allowed, and she was really freaked out because she felt herself like transparent and then able to be read, and then reflecting back to this point of emotions, like this inside reality is happening, and we want to cover up, and then with emotions we are unable to control, to hide. So for instance, for me, I was mostly this suppressive guy, like I am this guy and man and stable and everything is fine, and then up to the point I suppressed everything and then just exploded and started to rage. And it was not really nice or practical or considering even myself or others. So I started to decompose with self-forgiveness, what I have allowed to react to with this energy friction. And then by that I was able to find out that what was the starting point and what is the point exactly when I have to stop, and then within stopping, really seeing what I'm doing and what I am fear losing. Like I am always here, just I am breathing and my body remains here. So the fear is quite irrelevant and it's fueled by these frictions of good and bad and always this self-interest. And with these points walking through, I am really expanding and transcending my personal views. It's like fascinating because these emotions and feelings are still happening or can be seen but not influencing within decisions or this point of interaction with others. So it's really practical to just write and then decide and then try out with reality because this emotion thing is quite an intense and like snappy reaction. It happens and then it's just out there and then cannot be sucked back like it did never happen because it's so intense. So it's really required to slow down and then just look what we are doing.
Yeah, emotions can be very overwhelming if we're not able to deal with them and to understand the starting point and be responsible for them. Joseph, you were talking about the physical body, and it's interesting that in this movie, one of the points that transcendence is also manifested is Will coming back to the physical body. So he actually, in the movie, he builds his own body to come and join Evelyn again and be able to touch her again. Now, in terms of actually on our process, the Desteni process, we also discussed this transcendence and of rebirthing from the physical. However, it's a different transcendence, and this movie kind of tries to bring the point of, okay, bringing back the physical, rebirthing from the physical. However, it doesn't touch upon any starting point or any change or in terms of the mind patterns, because his starting point to come to the physical, it wasn't to do great things in the world, it was actually to be with another being in a total self-interest. So guys, do you want to talk about it and what have you understood of what it means to rebirth from the physical and as the physical body?
Okay, I'll go first. Well, I see that it's basically it's the end of the ego, so to speak, like an end of self-interest where you're standing like as the collective, so to speak, as a presentation of what is best for all, so that you're standing as that embodiment of oneness and equality together. And Will kind of had that, or part of it, in that he was standing one and equal with all the external information, like he could see the whole big picture, but it was missing the point of his own personal self-interest, self-reflection, where, you know, like that was making him want to do this or that, or just think about coming back, or place his persona within all the others' persona, where he could then communicate to Evelyn through all the other bodies, where we're kind of like, you know, keeping his earthly ego character intact, so to speak. Like, yeah. And so back to our process here and what it means to birth ourselves as life from the physical, I see that as just how we totally equalize everything, so that our decisions aren't influenced on any emotion or feeling, so that we can make sound decisions in every moment, that anyone else put in our shoes would make the exact same decision, that it's not made by a point of feeling or emotion because, you know, you particularly have this desire for this person or that person. It's beyond a preference and into actual physical principle, which is sound, which is the essence of oneness and equality, which is best for all.
Very cool, Mike. That was a very nice explanation of what this process that we're walking. And Joseph, would you like to add anything to what Mike just said?
Yes, it's like a process of realizing that we are already within this system, what is not really the best for all, and then it's like a system where what we are actually in a bigger system, and my system is like it's like wanting to have things what is influencing others, obviously, because it's a closed system in this physical and even these consciousness systems. And we are. I was always after this experience of transcending my physical limitations, and also I went to various psychedelic experiences, but I always reached the limit of the consciousness, so to speak, because it's my own physical body here, and then I cannot go any far beyond that, recognizing that I am always here in this physical and this human body, what is my responsibility and my ability to share. And that's a cool point to realize that it is the best vehicle device that we are already manifested ourselves in this physical. So no need to transcend the physical, because what is in the way to see, it's not the physical, but in our perceptions and the personal agendas and limitations in the mind. What can be simply decomposed and understood and transcended.
Yeah, and one of the points in the movie that they kind of show this physical transcendence is actually when the beings, they don't die, they are just immortal, and they can rebuild themselves from the earth. It's actually the earth that feeds them back the bones and the skin, replace everything. And one thing that it's actually an interesting perspective that we can also analyze is how this whole construct that Will created, that technology city that is able to rebuild itself, he says that it's actually based on the wife's dream of building peace in the world, of making good things. So we actually, and this is a very important point of awareness, that sometimes we hide ourselves, we hide our emotions, we hide our actually desires and intentions behind these altruists and the desire to do great things for the world without realizing the consequences that that would bring, because the starting point, it's not what is best for all, but it is what my wife's desire, what is that my desire is. So that is also an interesting point, because as we see at the end of the movie, well, sorry to spoil those that haven't watched this, but kind of a fight, either everything or nothing. And they take the decision of nothing, or we have to restart from scratch. And that is a point that I want us to discuss now, just before we go to one question that we got from Marlon, which is the point of this all or nothing. Basically, at the end, Will has to take the decision, and Evelyn also takes the decision of actually accepting the virus to destroy everything that has been created thus far. So, guys, what is your perspective on this? Do you reckon that humanity is going to actually be able to rebuild any different if we were to restart like that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't think we have to go back like they did in the movie, set themselves back so much. Like we were discussing earlier, how in the beginning of the movie you see the guy in his shop in the primitive times putting his keyboard under the door, and then at the end of the movie it kind of closes with him putting the keyboard under the door again, um, because basically that symbolizes, and it's ironic, about the suppression of communication. And I think we're at such a point here now that, well, it's each of our responsibility, especially, that's why we're blogging and why we're doing this hangout to begin with, is that to stimulate the communication about such topics. So I think we can be beyond that, and it's really a point of our own self-determination, really, that are we going to continue to communicate and manifest destiny, so to speak, as the living, walking examples of it, or are we going to say, oh, we're too far gone, I'm going to subscribe to, no, we're beyond a hope, or we're beyond the self-willed determination. And so I think it's a matter of each of us standing within that principal responsibility that, till here no further, I don't accept the basic programming conditioning of the previous history of how things have always been, so to speak, that history must repeat itself. We're here to create a new story, if you will. Yeah.
Perspective, Mike. Joseph, would you like to discuss this point as well on your perspective on this point of how can humanity restart without actually a foundation, so to speak?
Yes, it's important to recognize also that we don't have to go back to scratches, basically, but our starting point has to change, because our starting point is really this fear of loss and fear and this self-interest. It must be embraced that equality is the only way, because otherwise there will be always friction and polarities and separation. What must be let go completely, and then we can stand in unification. And then from that point, we don't know what would be the limit, actually.
Cool. So I'm gonna now we have a question now from Marlon. I'm gonna read it. Can you guys hear me okay still?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So Marlon asks, what is your perspective on how this movie promotes the humanity's personal identity as emotions and feelings, and why the anti-tech people fear losing that? And what do the anti-tech people represent about us as humanity? Do you guys understand the question?
Can you repeat it? You cut out a couple times.
Mike, you are able to see the question. If on the left side you press the button Q&A, and you should be able to also read the question yourself. It might be easier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let's first look at the first dimension of the question, which is, how is this movie promoting the idea that our humanity is our personal identity as emotions and feelings?
Right, because generally we see the world as our feelings and emotions. So our total perspective is limited to the state of our programmed conditioning as emotion and feelings, which is basically to exist as nothing more than an opinion, because it's less than the actual facts of the matter here.
Yeah, and also how you feel about something, meaning like if there's a change in the world, is how I feel about it, rather than investigating what does this bring, what does this mean, what does this say about us, to be changed into something that actually works rather than being destructive. So this kind of common sense, it's almost unseen in our emotions and feelings. So let's have a look at the second part, and this is for Joseph. Joseph, if you can also read the second part that Marlon asks is why does the anti-tech people are losing that, meaning those emotions and feelings, and that's why they are so against this artificial intelligence that apparently takes these emotions and feelings away. What does this represent and say about us?
Yes, as I see, I try to interpret at this moment we perceive our lives within this balance, and the emotions and feelings keep us in the perception of balance, and then we're losing this equilibrium what we defined ourselves to be, and then going into any polarities, it has consequences, and then yet not seeing that in physical, practical reality, we always manifest consequences. And then we focus on this and not really seeing, because we conclude ourselves with this love of the family and then hatred of the, I don't know, like whatever we hate, even some little things. And then we just balance our mind constantly with these energies. And then within that, we are unable to see the big picture, like others or other countries or famine or wars, and then the personal responsibility within it to even consider that if I let go this up and down, then maybe I am able to see a solution, what is right here within common sense. So it's like they fear what they don't know, and might show something what can lead to a solution.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes,
You want
and
to add?
then sorry, just saying that this identification with this emotion and feelings, and I am programmer and I learned artificial intelligence. I can say I could program emotions and feelings into any machine if I would have lots of time or programming capabilities. So it's not a good point, I think, to bring up, because come on, it's not life if we are emotional and kill something or someone from emotions. It's just energy. That's all.
Yeah. And I mean, but if a computer is able to program energy and emotions and feelings, what does it say about us? Are we not such a computer if we allow ourselves to live those emotions? So it actually brings a point back to ourselves, and that's what we don't want to face. We don't want to face that all these emotions and feelings are so pre-programmed that even a computer can replicate it. Um, so thank you so much, Marlon, for your input and point, because we're almost reaching the hour. The last point that I wanted us to discuss is that in this movie, it's amazing how one single being, that it's not even physical, is able to put this whole humanity into chaos. And also how easy it is to point the finger at a machine for the whole problems that exist in the world without actually realizing, and as you see in the end, is that he was actually bringing something good for the world from his perspective in terms of creating these nanoparticles that are able to clean the air and clean the water, from what I understood in the movie. So guys, do you want to comment on this, on how we actually do that already in our world, in terms of how easy it is to kind of point the finger at politicians that we blame for the system as it is, without actually taking responsibility and saying what can we do about it, and how can we work with what exists to actually benefit everyone else?
Yeah, okay. It's fascinating, really, the blame game that exists here, because, and I mean, I've played this blame game extensively myself, where I'd want to learn more about what's happening in the world around me, like politics, various religions, the economics of things, law. And initially what I went through was that the more I became aware of the particular details of the specifics of a situation, is that you know, it was a point of always like, well, who is accountable for this? Who's the point, you know? And so it was always wanting to find the point, and within it all is not connecting myself to the points in question ever really. So it was always like, oh well, this guy fucked this guy screwed that up, this that, and it gets you back into that chain reaction of just pointing the finger based on our, you know, as I see it, our ingrained defense mechanism, where we just shoot the finger at everybody. And it's ironic because what we're doing is just giving the finger to ourselves essentially. You know, it's just like saying like, oh fuck me kind of thing. And it what really helped me in this process of the blame game, so to speak, was that just to look at the word blame and see that blame is to be lame. So that any time in any capacity that you put out, you know, an inkling of blame towards somebody else, even if they were connected to that responsibility, you're in fact being lame yourself. And lame is just, I mean, it's one of the biggest tragic comedies, or tragic, horrendous things here. You know, it's tough to even connect comedy with the tragedy. It's just so unfortunate.
Cool. And perhaps in a different perspective, Joseph, to conclude now, what would you think should have, well, in your perspective, if this kind of mind consciousness, well, this consciousness exists, or as in the movie, that is able actually to give people health and reconstruct the body and do things that we as humanity haven't yet reached that point of finding solutions so quickly. What is your perspective on that, and how could this story be supportive in terms of the lessons that we can take from it, rather than going into this whole Hollywood fiction of the fight against evil, for instance?
We are basically seeing this having a computational power like enormous amount, what we already have actually. We could figure out basically a system what can consider all and consider the basic common sense that everyone needs food and healthcare and shelter and clean water, and everyone knows it basically. And then to provide a system what is not compromising this from anyone else, because that would be a start for a real transcendence. Because then we would transcend our self-interest and we would practically use this computational power or whatever we can just create or evolve and really use for this current situation. Like really this system, like repairing human bodies and not go into the corporate profit agenda. Like maybe only the rich can acquire it. That would be really a shame and the absolute opposite of transcendence, I think.
Cool. That's a very cool conclusion now, as a takeaway dimension that we can definitely reflect and that we should consider as what we want for humanity, and also how deceiving it can be, the self-interest of wanting to just protect the loved ones rather than considering the big picture and what exactly are the big needs of this humanity. So guys, it's now almost 45 minutes past the hour, so I would like to thank you. I would like to thank those who sent our comments. Yeah, thank you very much, and it was a pleasure discussing this movie with you. So see you next time very soon.
Awesome, likewise.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.